Hey everyone, hope you all are doing great. I welcome you all to our first episode of Zero to Hero and Learn with Dynamics 365 Finance by our renowned MVP Rakesh. But before we start our today's event, my name is Parth Varu. I'm Events and Program Manager for Microsoft Reactor. And let's go to our code of conduct. We all are here to learn together, participate together. So please be respectful of other people's views, understanding their differences, be kind and considerate in a way we all engage. Yes, we do encourage you all to participate. Please drop all your questions in the comment section and we'll pick it up from there. And now I'd like to bring in our MVP Rakesh for today's event. Hey, hi Rakesh, how are you? I think you're on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Rakesh, where
Thank
are
you.
you
Thank you,
joining us
Parth.
from today?
I'm joining from Mumbai, Parth.
Oh, that's well, great. Rakesh, so our first episode looks like very exciting. Like, how about invoice capture? Can you give us a bit short glance about it? Like, what are we going
Sure,
to have today? Yep.
sure. First of all, I would like to thanks Microsoft Reactor India and special thanks to you, Parth, for allowing me to talk in this learning series. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on your location. So, as you highlighted, Parth, this is a very interesting learning series, what we have carved out today. So, there are three episodes that we plan. It will start with, as the name suggests, a zero to hero. So, those folks, those are newsbees, or probably those are new to this invoice capture world, or transition their career from non-dynamics ERP background, which is SAP, Ramco, or for that matter, Oracle. And if they would like to understand more on this, the solution called invoice capture, this is what the series is all about. There are three sessions that we plan. We call as
Yes.
episode. First
Yes.
episode where we will talk about more on the aspects of what, when, and how, and wow. The invoice capture is all about. What that tool is all about. Why the vendor automation invoice journey is very important. In episode 2, where we will talk about more on the hands-on experience of invoice capture solution. We will deep dive into the aspects of the configurations and the core capability that product offers. In episode 3, we will talk about more on the navigating the pitfalls, what we have learned
Yes.
as part of the
Yes.
implementation journey. That's how the
Yes.
summary of this series.
Sounds so exciting. Wow, great. And yes, I'll drop you the link of all the three series where you can register and post event you can watch the videos too. And yes, Rakesh, I'll not delay further. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Parth. Thank you, Parth. So once again, good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone, depending on your location. So before we dive into the discussions that we plan today, it will continue next 60 minutes or so, and it has divided into two aspects. First aspects where we will talk about more on the presentation slide, where I'm going to spend quite a bit amount of time on the understanding of the vendor invoices, but before we go into the vendor invoices, we will touch base a little bit about the core challenges nowadays the finance and the procurement team faces in the manual world of vendor invoice processes and how that journey get transformed when you have any sort of automation. Then, in terms of the agenda today, we will start with the introduction, where we will more discuss on the journey to automate the vendor invoices. Then we will try to learn more on the why automate vendor invoices, right? What is the significance? What is the thought process and the idea behind it? Then we will touch base the what does invoice capture do as a solution, right? We will detail out more for those folks who are very new to this world of the invoice capture. It's going to be very beneficial discussion for them. Then we'll talk about how do you implement the invoice capture, right? It's a learning journey. So there are a lot of learning lessons from my perspective that I try to carve out in this presentation slide, where you would see the implementation path of this invoice capture. Then we will also see the competitive landscapes for this invoice automation tool. There are a bunch of ISVs, which I'm pretty sure that you as a consultant should be aware of it. When you have a dialogue with your customers vendor, you should be aware, because invoice capture is not alone in the world of the vendor invoice automation, but there are a bunch of ISVs. Then we will also navigate through the product. Okay, I have deployed the trial environments for everyone understanding. We'll go through that demo where I'll quickly walk you through what are the key aspects that you should know when you install the product, right? As I mentioned previously, this is episode 1, which will give you a glimpse of the vendor invoice automation, as well as what best you can achieve by implementing the invoice capture as a tool as part of this series. However, in the second series, we will have a more hands-on experience. Now I'll move to the next slide. In terms of my introduction, my name is Rakesh and I'm a Microsoft MVP as well as a Fasttrack recognized architect from Microsoft. I'm also a certified trainer, and I'm also the certified in Azure Solution Architect as well as the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Apps Solution Architect. I lead the customer success architect team and focus more on the solutioning and architecting areas of Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation, and mainly on the integration aspect. I am also active member in Dynamics 365 community. I write a blogs. I'm also YouTuber and lifelong learner. You would see my blog, which is b65cliffnotes.com, where I try to write a blogs on a particular subject where I learn a lot, mainly on the integration between the third-party apps, integration between the Dataverse and financial operation app, as well as some sort of integration that happens with the banks. You can reach out to me on my LinkedIn handle as well as the Twitter handle, and you can also write an email to me on rakesh.dargi@outlook.com. Okay, so that's all about me. Now let's deep dive into the area of the automation world right now. So let me just take you back to a time not so long, but just a couple of years before the automation started dominating the finance world, right? So let's try to picture this, right? A mid-sized manufacturing company, let's call it as a Cliff Notes Limited, and their accounts payable team is literally buried under the mountains of invoices. Each day a stack of envelopes arrives and filled with the vendor invoices. Literally, the AP staff spends hours and hours manually to look at each and every invoices, enter those invoices into the system, while entering cross-validate the information that they have received through their vendors, verifying the amount, the quantity, and so on and so forth. Right? It's literally pain. It's literally pain for them, right? And but obvious, as the manual process triggers, right, the errors are going to be happens. The vendors basically are going to call them for a chase of payment because there is a agreement happens for the payments and everything, and literally the team is stressed out. They were literally struggling to catch up with the time, and it's a painful activity for them and the race against the time. One day what happened, the CFO wonders, and CFO was trying to highlight why my month end closing is activity is not happening on time, why there is a continuous every month we are struggling for these AP automation processes. Can we do something like that, right? So isn't there is a better way? That's how CFO start thinking about it, isn't it? So, and I'm pretty sure this is not the one of the scenario. I'm sure many of you have seen or heard a similar story play out in your organization, or maybe with your customers, or maybe with your partner organization where you are doing the implementation. But today I'm here to tell you there is a better way. There is a better way to accommodate these sort of manual processes, and that's what brings us to our today's topic called as Dynamic 365 Finance Invoice Capture. And we are here to explore why this automation is going to be game changer, especially for Dynamic 365 Finance ERP, and what it does and how it can transform your vendor invoicing process from chaos to the seamless automations. Okay, so that's how the current challenges the accounts payable and the finance team is nowadays facing. As our session indicates, a series of questions: why, what, how, and when. Let's start with the first question, which is why automate the vendor invoices, right? Definitely, though it is look like a very simple question, but before we dive deep into the technology, let me just try to answer this question, right? So when it comes to the automation, there is a 80-20 rule involved, right? Where the 80% automation comes into picture and 20% the manual processes are comes into picture, correct? And why the manual 20%? Because manual processes are always going to be error prone. For example, as we are discussed or as we see in the previous slide, the Cliff Notes experience a manual entry leaves, right? As the invoices are coming in from a different vendors, and it leads to a mistakes. And according to the industry standards, approximately the industry study says it can it can 3 to 5% of manual process invoice contain errors, right? So you can imagine the volume of invoices if a enterprise working with thousands and multiple invoices, how that percentage can go up to 10 to 15%. And again, to fix those errors, you need to have efforts, time, and money involved. Correct. Another aspect comes into picture is the efficiency gain, right? So by having the 80% of automation, definitely you are going to reduce the invoice processing time by 80%. Again, that 80% that comes with the industry studies. And based on my experience, wherever I did the implementation, I have also seen that customer has literally gained close to 60 to 70% of gain in terms of the efficiency. And by meaning the efficiency means the AP team can focus more on the activity that they're supposed to focus, such as the strategic tasks, or uh, rather more entering on the data entry aspect. Another aspect, by bringing the 80% rule, which is automation, that's going to bring you more on the cash flow management, where the automated solution, you can just avoid the early payment discount, make sure that discounts are never missed, and also try to see the late fee you can avoid as part of your vendor activities. In one of the report that I also seen, that it shows that company may lose such as $40 millions manually. That's how the survey report says in terms of the late fee payments worldwide. Okay. Another aspect, when you try to bring the automation as the 80-20 rule, which is the compliance and the audit trail. When it comes to the automation not only captures the invoice information which you would require for your data view process in your ERP system, but it also ensures the audit trail, right? So when it comes to the audit trail, your auditing activity would be more detailed out. There would not be any kind of a non-compliance reports that you need to act upon it, right? So every approval, every edit of each and every activity is going to be logged. So you can imagine how much easier that makes compliance, right? So that's how the benefit of your the 80-20 rule by bringing the vendor invoice automation process. However, when it comes to the 80% automation, there are literally a lot of steps are involved. In my view, there are 5 steps are involved, if at all, if you try to bring the automation. It starts with the pre-payment applications, where you should have the application which would record the prepayment application. Then you would have the product receipts matching policy. If I talk about in the context of Dynamics 365 Finance world, then it's a two-way or three-way match policy which you would need to enable it. And then set of invoice validations. It could be validation as part of your processing of data that you're trying to bring from the invoice capture or any kind of a invoice automation tool. And then based on that invoice validation, you can proceed further. You can also enable the workflow submissions, where each and every activity is going to be record, and you can also understand how that information is going to be tracked and going to be helpful for your auditing purpose. Then the fifth step that's involved in the automation process, which is the invoice posting, right? When it comes to the invoice posting, is nothing but the standard posting that we typically do in Dynamics 365. It means you are run through the entire checks that would require for your invoice, vendor invoice to be validated, and now the invoice is ready for it. So these are the high level 5 steps are involved when it comes to the automations involved. Now let's focus on the next question that we supposed to ask. What is invoice capture, right? As the subject of this series indicates, we are going to talk about a lot on this invoice capture. But many folks, those who have come from a background of non-dynamics world, for those people, the invoice capture is a tool that would allow you to, extract the invoice data from any kind of a document that you have. For example, you have any manual file uploads, whether it's an image or PDF, or you have any automated email received from your vendor which contains those files, it has ability to read that invoice data and extract the information from those channels. It does also allow you to seamlessly, integrate into Dynamics 365 Finance World. What it means that you don't require uh, any specific integration to be built from scratch. It comes with by default, so it's a seamless integration. When it comes to the capability of reading that invoice information from any kind of a document, whether it's an image, PDF, it does uses in the background AI Builder and Azure Form Recognizer. So for those people, those are dabble in the archaeology of the technology, probably would understand the AI Builder is one of the service from Azure Landscape, which does allow you to provide to scan those values from these images. It does also allow your invoice the custom AI model, right? So we will talk about maybe the last portion of this session today, where I'll explain more on this custom AI builder. But in a nutshell, custom AI builder is one of the model where it would allow you to define your own format, your own field, which you can build on top of the standard model. It has its own intelligence. We will see in few minutes in action that how that intelligence that invoice capture has, and you can define the rule flexibilities for a complex scenario, such as you have a thousands of invoices and thousands of vendors, and you would need to define the set of invoice to be read based on information that has been assigned to the file name, or you want to segregate based on a vendor group or vendor name, and etc. All these complex rule that you can use in this invoice capture. The invoice capture comes with a standard model where where it, uh, it has it train on the n number of invoices by Microsoft. What it means that Microsoft has already did the heavy lifting activity. It has a predefined vendor invoice format, and you can use as it is, and you can use those specific fields. However, if you have any specific formats and those fields are not exist on a standard model, then you can build your own custom model build upon your standard model, right? So you are not building something from scratch, rather you are building your new custom model on top of the standard AI model, right? So that's how we understood what is invoice capture. Now let's switch the gear and understand what does the Dynamics 365 Finance invoice capture do, right? Because we talk a lot, right? We understand, if I just quickly go back and recap, we understand the current challenges, if there is a manual processes involved in the vendor invoices processing, and we also understood if at all the automation required, what sort of steps those are required. We also understand what is invoice capture, right? Now we'll see what does this Dynamics 365 Finance invoice capture do. As you can see on this screen, try to read this slide from your left right, because it has divided into four different buckets. It starts with the incoming documents and ends with the document processing. What it does, it's try to read the incoming document, it processes something, and then it's release the information that you would required after the successful reading of that information, and then only process into Dynamics 365. None of the invoices those are failed. None of the invoices are going to be processed or pushed to Dynamics, although those are having some errors. So let's understand one by one, right? On the first slide, where you can see the incoming document, and this it indicates the documents that you would receive. You might receive the document as a paper document, then you scan it, or you might receive the emails or invoices or OneDrive for business, or for that matter SharePoint. All these aspects that you can configure in the invoice capture. As soon as you configure, then the invoice capture, which is nothing but the model driven app sit on top of the Dataverse, which has a capability, inbuilt capability to to derive and validate those information that you have validated. Then it also record each and every error. We will see in actions a few minutes that what status it goes through as soon as you uploaded the information of the document as an invoice document into the invoice capture. And if the documents information is captured correctly based on the configurations that you have done and successfully passed, so then only it handovers that information, that data information to the invoice Dynamics 365 Finance for the invoice processing and posting. Otherwise, it will start recording the exception handling in the invoice capture. You would also see as a AP clerk, you would also see the invoice review, right? Many times we have seen that the invoices that we received may not be able to read by the invoice capture any kind of solution, right? So you need ability in the application where you can validate the information that you have received and that the invoice capture any tool has received. So I'll show an action how it showcase that information so that you should be familiar with that, how that exception handling and the invoice review process happens within the invoice capture. When it comes to the invoice processing, that is where the real story comes into picture, where all the business rules, the business logic getting applied, and and it start processing the information, right? As we learned previously, it comes with a standard AI model. You can also build a custom AI model. AI model nothing but it's just a gist of the machine learning aspect, right? So it has a capability where it trained that data by itself. We will see how that information look like in the product and how you can configure it. So what it means that today you uploaded 5 invoices from vendor ABC, and tomorrow the ABC has changed the format and they have little bit modified something, right? It has a capability to automatically train that information. So there is no need for you to appoint a dedicated machine learning guy who can train those invoices and use these computes and all. It has that capability. So it just upload the invoices and it will start uploading. Once it is done, it has also processed for registering the invoices, then it will pass through for the approval process, and it also go for the releasing the activity once the approval is done, right? It also provides the ability to store those invoices into a dataverse, right? As I mentioned in the slide deck, you can see images, PDFs, or email that you can save, right? Once the entire document processing and the release activity is done, then only it processes into the document posting, right? And that's where the invoice vendor invoice creation process comes into picture, and you would see in the pending invoice vendor invoice form. I just try to process couple of invoices just for a demonstration purpose today. I'll see how I can best showcase you and how it look like in the vendor invoice form in the dynamics mode. Although we have seen the multiple preview in the invoice capture, but for the finance SME and accounts payable persona from Dynamics finance perspective, there also you can see the attachment preview. That's how the entire end-to-end journey of this particular aspects, right? That you can see in the what that Dynamics 365 finance invoice capture do. Now let's switch the gear and understand more on the how you can implement the Dynamics 365 finance invoice capture um, as part of your implementation journey, right? So as per me, there are 6 steps are involved. That's how I have learned when I try to implement the invoice capture. So it starts with assessment. You have to assess the current processes. Those are completely manually that your customer is running, right? Understand the core aspects, understand the challenges, understand the pain points, and build the story around how those manual processes can transform into the new world of Dynamics 365 automation world, right? So first of all, you have to first understand that assessment activity. Once you complete the assessment activity, then you have to start educating your vendor. That's where the step number 2 comes into picture, which is nothing but the vendor collaboration. Okay. I know it sounds bit similar to the vendor collaboration portal for those folks having a background of Dynamics 365, but let me clarify that point. It's something different, right? So vendor collaboration is nothing but you should start having a dialogue with your vendor, because many vendors may or may not have digitally transformed their applications or their invoices, right? So you have to start educating them. You have to start interacting with them, helping them that we are trying to build the automation which will simplify not only my processes but also your journey right from sharing the invoices until the you receive the payment from me, right? So that's how that collaboration you have to start activate with your vendors. Step number 3, where you have to start with small pilot projects. Okay, that's how I approach it, right? Rather than going with the big bang approach. So what it means that try to sample few invoices, right? Because if you are dealing with or your customer dealing with more than 1,000 vendors, definitely the 1,000 vendors would have different templates, different information being recorded in the template. So as part of the step 2, as you started the collaboration activity with them, try to engage with them and see we are planning to initiate these small projects, and help them to understand what are the uniformity that we can bring as part of the unified template for that particular all the thousands of vendors. There is a high possibility out of thousand, only 20% vendors are fully automated, and remaining 80% are basically on manual. So try to see how those 80% can transition into the automation world gradually. That's where we'll come to know by implementing the step 3 by starting with a small project. In step 4, you would see the customization of the workflow, right? Although the product offers a workflow, there's a high possibility you can leverage the Power Automate to trigger the workflow. Your business users are using the mobile app on the go for the approval and all. So try to see if there is ability for you to extend that workflow capability as per the implementation guidelines and the requirements. Step 5, that's where you have to train your team, because training the team is going to be play a very very important and the crucial factor here, because if the person is very much familiar with the invoice capture, there is no guarantee where he or she is also familiar with the invoice side of the story in the Dynamics 365 finance, right? So the training is going to play a very very crucial and the important factor here. So you have to plan your training in such a way that your team should understand the invoice captures understanding, how the invoice capture receive the information, if it failed, where to go and navigate, what information it failed, why it fails, right? So all this information you should capture as part of training. At the same time, you should also train your team to also see if the data has been transitioned from invoice capture to the Dynamics 365 finance world. Then in that case, how that information they can see in the pending invoice form, right? So all this information, so training is going to be play a very, very important factor. And the last but not the least, which is the monitoring and the optimize. So once we are ready with your pilot project, once you assess step number from 1 until step number 5, it's time to start pushing into the production environment and see whether you are really seeing the value of the productivity gain that we have seen on a previous example, right? So that's where you'll start thinking about monitoring the invoices. Can we bring the new agility or some sort of additional things to optimize those invoices? How much time it takes to process? Is there anything that we can improvise, and so on and so forth, right? So these are the 6 steps that I wanted to quickly touch base with all of you, which would give you a more idea about how do you implement a Dynamics 365 finance invoice capture, right? Now we are reaching towards the last segment of the presentation deck before we deep dive into the application landscape. So as I mentioned previous when we started a discussion, right, the invoice capture is not the only one solution available in this space, right? So there are other solutions out there, and while Dynamics offers the native invoice capture integration and the capability, while it comes with the free of cost in terms of the subscription, although it requires additional subscriptions and money to pay when you scan the invoices. There is a specific guideline available on Microsoft Learn portal. I would highly recommend to go through and validate those before you start thinking about. But there are a bunch of ISVs available, and I'm pretty sure you should be aware of those the competitors, so that when you have a dialogue, when you have a pre-sales activity or any sort of activity that you're dealing with your prospects or customer, you should be aware that these are the bunch of ISVs are available in the market. First ISV is a ReadSoft, which is nothing but a kind of a invoice capture solution that adopts your business needs and integrates with any ERP. Like it can it can integrate with your Dynamics 365 or as well as SAP as well. There is another ISV called as Xflow, which is an inbuilt feature which allows again the invoice automation solution build, and which simplify the vendor invoice management journey. There is another ISV called the DocCentric, right, which offers the lot of products and services and reporting purpose, and also built for the document automations for Microsoft technology such as Dynamics 365. There is another competitor called DocX42, where It allows you to make your document automation and the data integration more simplified than the manual work. There is another ISV called as extension, where this AX extension automates your vendor invoice processing inside the Dynamic 365 and manage all your accounts payable tasks from a single location. So if you're really thinking about providing a solution to your customers as part of this vendor invoice journey, I would highly recommend to understand these the ISVs and the competitor world, and also the core aspect that Dynamic 365 finance invoice capture offers, right? So with that, I'll take a pause and I'll switch the gear. We'll move on to the product demo. Okay. So before we dive into the product demo, I would like to just quickly touch base the invoices that I referred in this particular, the presentation. So this is a first invoice that I have prepared for Acme Office Supplies. It's pretty much standard and simple. I'll just quickly highlight two aspects to it. One is it has a header information which contains the addresses, the delivery date, the purchase order numbers, the address, and etc. And it contains the list of invoice lines, right? Nothing but the items that I have already baseline in the Dynamic 365 finance world. I have another invoice for Khan Enterprises where it has three lines of invoices. Okay, and these three lines also consider as the items in the Dynamics 365 Finance. The idea to showcase to you that this is the PDF that I referred as part of our discussion. Let me just quickly go back to the application. So when you navigate to the Dynamics 365 Finance world, this is the home page, and on a home page you would see the invoice capture solution, right? When you click on the invoice capture, you would see some sort of, let me just quickly refresh, you would see some sort of this home page of invoice capture. Okay, as soon as you click on the home page of the invoice capture, it comes with the nice view of the dashboard, right, where you will see 30, 60, and 90 days by default the dashboard capability, that system dashboard capability that it has, where you can see how many invoices that got in a awaiting status, how many invoices that are obsoleted on error status, how many invoices that week by week that you can see in last 30 days. If you are not familiar with this sort of dashboard, you can go ahead and create your own dashboard as well, right? In terms of the configuration, there are two set of information that I would like to walk you through today as part of today's first session, which is going to be beneficial and the continuation to our episode 2 and episode 3 as well. So there are two areas that we should first understand. One is the manage invoices. That's where you can see the dashboard capability. You would see the invoice, the captured invoices. It means the invoices that I have uploaded manually or automatically, and the information that you're trying to upload, if at all, if there's a pending file. But I'll come back on this manage invoices option a bit later, because I wanted to first cover the setup. Once you understand the setup, then we'll come back to the manage invoices option. Okay, so let's understand this, the system setup, right? When it comes to the system setup, and as soon as you click on that, there is a nice dashboard homepage available, which would simplify the configuration activity for you. If you are not familiar with this, you can also navigate on the left hand side and bunch of information that you would see here as part of the system setup, right? So one of the setup is the system preference, right? This is one of the setup where you would try to tag your channels. So channels are nothing but sort of information that you are trying to bring the information in the Dynamics 365 Finance invoice capture world, right? Where whether it could be your automated channel, it could be a manual channel, right? You can also set the AI builder model. If you remember correctly in the presentation deck, I was just trying to cover the aspect of standard AI model or custom AI model. So this is a standard AI model, but if you want to change something, you can just simply click on this and add the new model. Add the new model if you have any custom model to it, right? Then you can also create a configuration group, and this is where one of my favorite configurations, where it gives you ability to capture all the invoices information that you want to process. For an example, I created this for a demo purpose of invoice capture demo, where I have set up the accepted type of my invoices. It could be just the PO invoices associated with the PO. It could be just a header only, and I want only the header information to be recorded, or I want just a cost invoice. We will go into detail in episode 2 and 3 what is difference between the cost invoices and header only invoices. But for a understanding purpose, in today's session, I want to just cover these are the standard accepted types when it comes to the invoice capture solution. It does, when you select the invoice header only option, any one of the option, it does allow you to just select the bunch of options, right? For example, you can just select bill to address, name to address. And one thing you might have noticed here, right, couple of fields are not editable for you to untick. It means these are the important fields that you should focus and you should have on your invoices. Without this, your invoice is not going to be continue, right? For such as the invoice number, the purchase order number, currency code, and total amount. Whereas the other fields can be mandatory and non-mandatory. Similarly for line as well. So what it means, these accepted types allow you to process the set of invoices or information that you want to process. Okay, and then you will see the header information and the cost invoices as well. At the same time, you can also define the manage review condition, right? Whether you want that invoices review condition, whether it has to be always error only or it has to be error and warning both. So that sort of information you can set up as part of your manage configurations, right? In the system preference. At the same time, there are a bunch of other information as well. I would like to just focus on only key fields that you should be aware of it. One of the field is the use of continuous learning, right? So this is one of the learning. This is one of the field that would need to enable if you want any sort of invoices to be processed, automatically. For an example, there is a thought process of having the having the information of confidence score, right? So there's option available. I'll show you in a few minutes the confidence score. So in that confidence score, you can define how much percentage of confidence score that you want to process, right? And confidence score is nothing but the recognized fields. Those are available on the invoices. Those are how much percentage of accuracy it returns, right? And it can vary from your 0 to 100. That way you can define the score. Higher the score indicates the AI builder has a more confidence in the recognized results. That's how it is. Now let's focus on the managed channel. That is where I'm using the default channel, where you can create as many as channel you want. You can deactivate the channels and all, which would allow you to define the information to bring the information in the dynamics invoice capture world, right? Then you can also define some sort of the confidence score here for a validation purpose, so that when you read the invoices, the validation process will automatically trigger and it will use the confidence score, and you will see how that confidence score look like. Okay. Then there is a bunch of information that you will see in the file filters. You can define the file filters as well. I'm just going with the default one, but you can define your file filter as based on your information. There's a manage group. You can create as many as manage groups that you want to have. As I already enabled the confidence score, you can see here, right? The confidence score setting is score setting is already open. I just change it from my 60 to 70 because I believe that the information that I'm going to receive on the PDF, I want that to be defined in the bucket of 60 to 70. Okay, and then it will start giving me morning. As I mentioned earlier, highest confidence score indicates that AI builder has a more confidence in the recognized results. It's based on how you scan and how that information is being read by the AI builder. If it is 0 to 60, then it is going to be definitely through an error message. I'll show in one of the example that I have prepared just for the purpose of this demo today. Then you can also define the manage legal entity. For demo purpose, I just configured only one legal entity, but you can create your own legal entity as well if you have a specific one. You can also enable the manage vendor. Okay, this is a vendor where it brings the information of vendor from Dynamics. Behind the scenes, it uses the virtual data entity concepts. It's never store the data into Dataverse, and you can do the mapping of those vendors when you actually do the mapping rules definition, which you can see on the left hand side below. Let's wait for a minute how it looks like. Sometimes it takes time to load the vendor invoices. But while it is loading, let me just quickly walk you through the manage mapping rules. So there are a bunch of rules that you can define. One of the rule that you can define is the legal entities, right? So you can create the new rule. You can define the rule name. You can define when the company name contain this, I want this rule to be triggered, when the address contain this, and so on. So all this, or maybe for the matter, track registration number, all these bunch of combinations that you can add. Similarly, you can also define the rule for the vendor account. What it means that my vendor account registration number is like this, my vendor content like this, and all this information, or my vendor account is like it's completely based on how you want to define your custom rule and what information that you have recorded into the Dynamic 365 Finance as a ERP, as well as the document that you receive from the vendors. Similarly, you will also you can also define the items over here, right? So if I just click on the new, you can also define the rule for the item as well. Okay, that's how the setups and the managed mapping rules allows. So as we learn the system setups and the mapping rule, let's go back and understand the manage invoices aspect, right? We talked about dashboard. Now we'll talk about the invoice, the captured invoices portion. So when you click on the captured invoices, this is where you would see all the invoices that got processed, whether it's manual invoices or automatic upload invoices will be available here underneath of the captured invoices. You can also navigate through to see all the invoices. So when you click on all the invoices, you would see all the invoices that you process. Here, I have tried to process the invoices which are still in awaiting state. What it means that it never processed to the Dynamics world, because in the Dynamics, the batch process that enabled was stopped. It could not process it. So it is still in awaiting state. It means that information still inside the invoice capture solution, not pushed to the Dynamics 365 Finance world. Similarly, I can go ahead and cancel the invoice. So think about a scenario. This is an invoice that I uploaded. You would see the information on the left hand side. You would also see the invoice header on the right hand side. So this is the same invoice that I showcased earlier, right? The Khan Enterprises. So here you would see system is trying to read that information. All the information it reads. For example, it reads the invoice number that I do have, which is 2111, and you can see on the left hand side. It also captured the PO number correctly. It also captured the USD and the line amount. If I just go further, it also captured the total tax amount and the total line amount, right? And you would see there are no errors, right? The because the confidence score that I already enable now, initially I disable it because I don't want that start giving the error message. That's the reason I stopped that. Now, if I go back here again, the invoice capture, there is a one more invoice for 1234 on a similar line, different vendors, right? Acme. This also it reads the information, right? Now, what we can do as part of the quick run, as we have seen the setup that I have enabled the confidence score, it means I want my AI model, that I have standard AI model, start understanding, start validating and verifying the content that I do have on my invoice, information page or PDF or image, and try to give me the confidence score, whether it is really readable or not, right? So what I'll do, I'll just try to upload the sample file here. I'll try to use the same file, which is Acme Office supplier. It takes few minutes, few seconds rather. There you go. So the file got uploaded successfully. As soon as you upload the file, you can see here, it automatically changed the status to cancelled. Why? The reason is the duplicate file is found, because I'm using the same invoice again and again for the purpose of the R&D or demo purpose, right? But I can just simply go ahead and select this, and I can just simply retry this, because I knew that this is the invoice that I have processed for the purpose of the training for this demo. But in a real life world, it has a capability to understand the or capture the existing invoices that we already processed, and it will automatically stop there and there only, so that accounts payable clerk can take a proper action that I do receive the multiple duplicate invoice from the vendor. Okay. So as you can see here, now it is in processing. So if I just go back and if I just click on the capture invoices, you will see now it is in awaiting state, right? So it means it is now in the process of capture invoice. Okay. And if I just go inside this, you would see here it started giving the error message. Why? The invoice header field is mandatory, right? So these are the errors that you can see if there is an issue with that, right? And I just wanted to showcase one more point. Let me go back and upload one more file. Let's take the Acme one. Do it again. So it is still processing. Takes few seconds to process. Got processed now. Yeah, this one. So you can see here, right? As I already enabled the confidence score, right? The system invoice capture is unable to read the information that I have uploaded through PDF and started giving me the error that the 42% of confidence score is too low for the field invoice number. Okay, so the invoice number is unable to read on the header, and 68% confidence score is too low for the field of the vendor invoice on the header. So this way you can define the confidence score and you can tune and optimize the invoices that you receive from the vendors. Okay, let's take a pause and go back to the presentation deck now. Okay, so let's quickly understand the next two episodes as we cover today the core aspect of what, when, and why about the invoice capture as well as the vendor invoice automation journey. There would be a next session plan on 5th of November where we will try to more focus on the hands-on journey with invoice capture, where you will see the configuration that I today walked through. We will see change the configuration. We will see the information and what it results into 2 or 3 scenarios that we will try to cover. We will also modify the invoices in the live demo and see if there's information how the invoice capture fits. Right from the uploading the invoices through automation channel, manual channel, as well as how that resulting into the invoice Dynamics 365 finance world. Then there would be episode 3, which is planned on 19th of November, where I will try to share the pitfalls or the challenges that I faced, so that you should be fully aware of while you are doing the implementation of the invoice capture, and couple of lesson learned, what information, what learning resources that I referred when I try to implement this invoice capture solution. So with that, I'll take a pause now, and if there are any questions, Parth, happy to take those questions.
Hi Rakesh. Seems like we have one question from Rupam. She asks like where verifications are happening at MIC. Um,
Okay, so there are two steps verification. When it comes to the data verification that you receive on the any scan images, Rupam, right? Yeah. So those happens in the invoice capture world. As I showed you earlier, right? Let me just quickly switch the So I hope my screen is visible. So all this verification
Yes.
happens here. That's the reason you would see here all the invoices, all the information that you would see. So first level of data information that you imported as part of your invoices, you can also classify the invoices by the way. All this information here. Second, once the invoice information is ready to be transformed to the Dynamics world, and if there is any specific business rule that you want to trigger, there's a second level verification that happens in a Dynamics 365 finance world, where in the pending invoices screen, in the pending inventory invoices screen, all these invoices would appear here, and that would be a second level of verification. But to answer your question correctly, from a data perspective, it happens in the invoice capture world.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Yes. Final call to ask the questions. Okay. We have a question from Charan asking what condition is it found duplicates invoices?
Okay, it's a very good question, Charan. So, as you might have seen, right, I was just navigating to our configurations where we have seen we define the rules based on a legal entity. We define the rule based on items and the vendors. So, what it does, it has innate capability when you read the information. Since it is tagged to the AI machine learning model, it has a capability to identify set of informations based on the mandatory fields. You might have seen I was just showcasing the set of mandatory fields which you cannot untick, right? So based
Yep.
on those fields, it has that intelligence to validate whether the invoices information is duplicated or not, irrespective of any images or PDF.
Okay. Yes. Any more questions? Final call to drop all your questions. Okay, great. So we don't see any questions coming up. So Rakesh, let's call for a wrap.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you, Rakesh.
everyone
Thank you so
for
much for
joining.
doing this, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Please do join our next episode. Here is the link where you can register and get the details of the next event. And plus, I have shared you the link for your learning further, so you can take your learning further. So please do take your learning further. And if you all have any more questions coming in, please reach out to Rakesh over LinkedIn. I have also shared his LinkedIn link. Yeah, here. Yes.
Yeah. I
So
would
we'll
like
be
to
happy
call
to
out
help you.
one point here, Parth. So as we are beginning on the episode 2 and 3, so if you have any specific business scenario that you would like to understand from us, right, do ping me on LinkedIn chat. I would try to prepare that for second session and third session as well, because second session is more on the hands-on experience, right?
Yep.
Although I'm just trying to bring my experience, but it's always good that if I can connect the dot with your experience, right? So that is always going to beneficial. So I would love to understand and hear from you as well.
Great. So we have one question from Janet. Is there an instance where IC cannot read the document?
If I understood it correctly, that there is a possibility where invoice capture may not be able to read the document, right? So, in my understanding and my learning, Janet, is that yes, if the invoice copy is basically not clearly returned, that's a possibility, probably one of the possibility where invoice capture will not read the information. Although, if you have any sort of handwritten text as well, it will start automatically interacting. But it's up to how we define the confidence score in the system, and it would start reading. But yes, I have seen few scenarios based on the confidence score setup.
Okay. Yes. I hope that answers the question. And yes, thank you, Rakesh. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today once again. And yes, let's see you all again at our episode 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Par. Thank you everyone for joining.